Hey, folks, thanks for joining me for this episode of the Embellish Podcast, a podcast focused on product stories, product storytellers, interesting brand ambassadors, and any other tangent that I happen to come up with. Whether you're a fan of bourbon or a geek or a casual observer of the brand, or someone just floating through this channel, you're sure to waste a few minutes listening to what I have to say, and I hope you find it interesting. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists, and if you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com, and I'll try to get that taken care of. I also generally live stream the recording of any episode on YouTube on Wednesday nights around 9:30, and as you can tell, tonight is a special situation. So you can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or Twitter or Facebook with the same handle. I have a website. It's www.embellishpod.com. That is also a place to pick up these links, episode details, and even some one-off tasting notes. Today is Monday, January the 31st, 2022, and we're going to be talking to Chris Blatner of the Urban Bourbonist and Bourbon Charity. Chris, thanks for joining me tonight.
John, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to our conversation.
For sure. I'll be honest, whenever I was telling you this before we got on, when I sent this message out asking if you would join me, I fully expected a no, not necessarily because of any kind of an air that you happen to carry or anything like that. I know that time is valuable and you have to make sure that whenever you use it wisely, and sometimes small platform guys aren't really a huge win for you. But then I forget, this is the bourbon community. It's incredibly open, easily accessible. And sometimes it just sort of works out. So if at any point I ask anything that you're not interested in talking about, absolutely call it out. We don't have to dance around anything. But I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I am going to pop this for the first time tonight. It's a Blue Note Juke Joint Whiskey single barrel. This one happened to be picked by some friends of mine. Dad's drinking bourbon, and I think the local distributor there in Nashville. So I'm interested to try this. I've had like the standard offering of the Juke Joint Whiskey, and it's really, really nice, really good. I'm just expecting this to be that on steroids, basically. It's 114 proof, uncut, unfiltered. It's a 2-barrel blend, so looking forward to this.
Yeah, usually, and from the best, I don't have any of their bottles, but what Zeke and John usually pick is usually pretty fantastic. I see you've got the aged in Ornate glass. I love those things. Those things are fantastic. I'm going to start tonight with a single barrel as well. This one is going to be a Sagamore Spirit Rye, and it happens to be picked by Leo Soda Shop.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so a guy happened to mule a bottle for me, a guy that lives in Chicago that goes by the name of Chris Blatner, and I truly appreciate that. We hooked up through Instagram, and I've shared this with a number of people, and they absolutely love this thing.
I'm glad to hear it. That's awesome. I should have grabbed my bottle of that and drank it with you. Maybe my next pour.
Right. We may flip flop because I do have a Blue Note Juke Joint single barrel behind me, so
nice.
We may flip flop that. But that's actually how I knew who you were first as Urban Bourbonist, and you've been developing that profile for a while. I know why I did it. Why did you? Like, what pushed you into this?
Into the whole social media, Instagram type of world.
Yes, absolutely.
I got into that just basically. I was getting into really starting to get into whiskey just a few summers ago, and I'd always had a couple of bottles of whiskey around and on my shelf, but I was more of a craft beer guy. Mm-hmm. And just was really into craft beer, but started to kind of sour on it a little bit just because of a lot of the different changes that were happening in craft beer, and kind of getting out of control, I thought, with like the different milkshake things and flavored
the different finishes that they happen to be doing in craft beer at the time.
Yes. So
does it feel mildly familiar now?
Exactly. Yes. So I, decided I'm looking at these 2 bottles of whiskey that I've always had around on my bar, which happen to be Old Grandad bottled in bond and Rittenhouse Rye bottled in bond.
Two solid
And
staples.
yeah, those were like the staple bottles that I always had. And you know what? I was like, I'm gonna start following some people on Instagram that are like whiskey people, and just start exploring a little bit and diving a little bit deeper into those 2 bottles. And after, I don't know, a couple of months of kind of being a voyeur and watching, people post and talk about whiskey, I really just started getting into it a lot. It picked up, some bottles that I had saw that people were recommending, and then after a while, I just was like, you know what, this is a lot of fun. I like the conversations that are going on. I like learning about all these different types of whiskey. I'm gonna, start my own page as like an outlet. I was looking for kind of a creative outlet at the time too, and I said, what the hell? I'll start an Instagram page and start, sharing my thoughts and just interacting with the community. And it's been absolutely incredible. Just being able to meet so many different people online, and have had the pleasure of meeting so many people now in person that I had originally met through Instagram, which is absolutely insane to me, and just a whole lot of fun. And I'm super grateful for like what Instagram has like done for me in my life, really, in terms of creating new friendships and creating a place where I could learn about this thing that we all love. I'd always been into whiskey, but not like really deep dive into it. And I've been able to do that now over the past several years, and it's been incredible.
So you mentioned that this is part of a creative outlet. In your normal day-to-day work, do you do creative things, or do you not do creative things, and so you need that because you're not doing it in your day-to-day work?
I do some creative things in my day-to-day work. So I actually am lucky. I'm able to work with my wife. She's a small business owner in the nutrition field. She's a dietitian. So I work along with her in that as like my full-time day job. And yeah, there's opportunities there to do. I do some stuff with her social media, and we get creative with recipes because she's always cooking up something different to share with her followers on social media and with clients of hers. So yeah, I do have some creativity there, but my background is in journalism. I have a degree in broadcast journalism, and did a little bit of writing after I got out of college for some small newspapers in southeastern Wisconsin. So I've always had that like kind of draw to like journalism, and I feel like the Instagram page gives me that opportunity to, I don't know, report my feelings about what I'm drinking, and talk about, report on what I'm experiencing and drinking, and yeah, it's been great. And I've, been able to do a lot of really cool things on there and have some great conversations. I do a thing occasionally called the Urban Bourbon Hour, and I've been able to do a lot of interviews with different distilleries and people from those distilleries, which gets back to like that whole journalism kind of aspect as well. So I love it for that reason.
I like that. Instagram is a form of journalism.
Yes.
We've had some conversation before back and forth through Instagram Messenger about, influencers and what exactly this thing is that people happen to do, because it almost feels like a vanity project. And I had to rearrange my screens because I kept looking over here because that's where you were, but the camera's over here, so it looks like I'm just staring off into space. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Attentive. It's just I work in software, and so I have a bunch of screens here, and so I end up looking at the wrong direction. It doesn't work out so well. So, so my first interaction with you specifically, which I mean, it wasn't directly with you. I joined a Bourbon Charity bingo, and I think it
Hmm.
was right before Christmas of 2020. Could have been right after Christmas of 2020. Not entirely sure. And it's a distinct memory for me, and maybe it is or isn't for you. It was right after Zoom had launched their ability to draw on the screen,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so that was a super entertaining evening for me. But um, was it as frustrating for you as it looked, or was it like you were just we'll just roll with the punches?
I think at first it was like, what's going on here? I didn't even know that that was something that you could do on Zoom. So in kind of in the background, a lot of us that were like the people speaking during that bingo night were like messaging each other, like what is going on? Like, how do we take care of this? Because I think, people were drawing some
Yes.
inappropriate shapes on the
Hmm.
screen. But then I think after a while it was just like, what are we gonna do? You know?
It's sort of like when you have that one kid that's always in class that's being disruptive. The more attention you give them, the more likely they are to continue to be disruptive. And I noticed once you guys backed off of just saying anything, everybody sort of died off of it. But it was something, in because once the pandemic hit, my office shut down, so I've been working remotely for pretty much that entire time until now. And it was something they literally released like 3 or 4 days before. So you guys just slid it in time to be able to experience the full Monty, so to speak, of
Yeah,
what's going on.
exactly.
And it was entertaining. It was a good time, and absolutely. Um, how long have you been directly involved with Bourbon Charity?
I've been involved really since the beginning. So I was an ambassador for the first couple years that the charity was in existence. I had seen, again on Instagram, I had seen Brandon Hunt, who is the founder of Bourbon Charity, posting about a fundraiser he was doing with his own whiskey bottles. And I reached out to him like immediately and was like, hey, this is really cool that you're doing this. If there's anything that I can do to, help in any way, just let me know. And he was like, hey, if you can just tell people about it, and that's good for now. Like, he didn't really have a plan. It was just, he had some things going on in his life. His father had gotten prostate cancer, and a friend of his had a child that had these tumors that they didn't know what was going on, and he just felt moved to try to do something about it. And he's looking at his whiskey collection, going, I know these bottles are worth a lot of money.
Hmm.
Maybe I could, sell a few of these or auction them or whatever, and just raise some money and give to these charities that might be able to do some help for people, which happened to be the Prostate Cancer Foundation and Children's Tumor Foundation were the first two charities that were supported by Bourbon Charity, and they've been pretty much, I think they've been one of the core charities from the beginning. Like every year, they've been a part of what we do, and they're just really great partners and doing really great work as well. And we're happy that to be able to write a check to them once or twice or three times a year and help them, accomplish what they're trying to do. And that's what Bourbon Charity is about when you boil it down, is that we are we are trying to mobilize the generosity of this community into Bourbon Charity, and then taking that generosity and distributing it to all of these other charitable groups that have these incredible missions to help other people. And I think it's so cool to be able to do that, and to get this community rallied around what we're doing, and to be able to make the impact that we have over the past few years has just been, it's really been awesome. If people have been following along from the beginning, there's been some absolutely amazing things done over the last few years.
Absolutely. And that's, you mentioned Brandon, and it's kind of unique. There's another podcast that I've done a couple of guest hosting episodes with. It's called Chill Filtered. It's a couple of guys from out. Well, one of them just moved back east, but they actually reviewed some whiskey today that Brandon had actually shared with them himself. And so you see this kind of through line that exists with Brandon, with Bourbon Charity, and with largely the bourbon community, where when there's a need that arises, people seem to be very willing to meet that. We all participate in the bingos and the raffles with the hopes that we win a bottle. But at the end of the day, nobody feels bad, or at least for my part, I've been participating with Bourbon Charity since I think July of 2020, and I've never once second guessed any money I've given, whether I win something or not, because at the end of the day, it's going to a positive cause. It's got some benefits. And one of the folks in the chat asked this, and I actually had it on here, so we'll go ahead and hop to it. Are there any more bingo nights or those type of events planned in the future?
Yes, we do. So we just kind of finalized everything that we're going to be doing in 2022. So for people that are just learning about Bourbon Charity tonight or watching this on a recast, we have, typically what we want to do in this whole idea of mobilizing the generosity of the whiskey community is we also want everyone that is involved with the charity, that donates to the charity, to have a say in where this money is going. So we're actually allowing also our donors and anyone that wants to we pre-select some categories of charities, and then allow everyone to vote on where they want the money to go. So everyone has some ownership over what Bourbon Charity is doing. We are the bourbon community, so we want the community to have a say in the charities that we're supporting. With all that being said, we just selected 10 charities for 2022 that we're going to be supporting. We'll support beyond that throughout the course of the year, but those will be the ones that you'll be seeing popping up on a regular basis throughout all of our planned fundraisers this year. So in March, we're doing a Brackets for Bourbon fundraiser. We did that for the first time last year. So we'll have people buy a bracket for the NCAA tournament. You fill that out, you enter it in. We'll set this up through, I think, probably an ESPN site. And we'll have, of course, bottles of whiskey and some other fun prizes in there along the way as the tournament progresses until we get to a winner. So that's the first thing we're going to be doing in March. And then we'll be doing Kentucky Derby and Mother's Day fundraiser. That will be an online sweepstakes, which people will be familiar with. That's kind of been our main fundraising way to raise funds over these last few years, is through that sort of online sweepstakes style bourbon raffle. And the Derby and Mother's Day fall on the same weekend this year, so we're kind of combine those two into a fundraiser. Then here's where the bingo nights come in. In June, for Father's Day, we're going to be doing 2 bingo nights, the Friday and Saturday of Father's Day weekend. I believe it's June 17th and June 18th. So we're going to do 2 nights. We'll have all kinds of cool stuff going on both nights. Of course, great whiskey. We're working on, some other prizes besides whiskey to be in those as well. And we have some things in the works, hopefully, potentially with some sponsors for those bingo nights, which will bring in some other cool aspects to those. So that's where the bingo nights come in. Then later on in the summer, August, September, we're going to do a Support the Troops fundraiser. We've been doing that for the past couple of years. That will be around Labor Day. And then we finish up the year in November with our Bourbon Giving fundraiser. And those will also be the online sweepstakes style fundraisers that people following Bourbon Charity will be very familiar with. But always great whiskey. We're planning to do, as I said before, some other cool prizes besides whiskey in these fundraisers as well. So it should be a good year. It's going to be great.
It sounds like you guys have a lot planned, and that's I guess super helpful to do all the planning up front. It maybe takes a little bit of the weight off of you later on, and it sounds like you're going to be giving away a ton of bottles. So that kind of begs the question, like, where do these come from? Because you guys have the ability to give away bottles that most of us don't find on a regular basis. So, like, where's this all coming from?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. So up until this point, believe it or not, we have been working mostly with donations from Brandon Hunt, who started the charity. He's had just an epic collection of whiskey that he donated to the charity. And we've been, for the most part, not every single bottle, we've acquired some things. We've had some other things donated from other people, but for the most part, it's been Brandon's just epic whiskey collection that has been, that started Bourbon Charity and kept it afloat, for these first couple of years, for all of the fundraisers we've done. And by the way, we've done 22 online fundraisers since the first one, which was in June of 2019. So we've done 22 different online fundraisers since June of 2019, 366 bottles of whiskey across all of those fundraisers, which is incredible. But we're at the point now where our inventory is not depleted, but it is at a level where we need to start replenishing the inventory. So right now we have a bottle drive and a membership drive going for our Bourbon Hood membership. So we're asking our community of supporters and donors that if they can donate, a desirable bottle of whiskey to Bourbon Charity, it will go into our fundraisers. Maybe not this year. We're trying to, build up that inventory to last us over the course of several years if we can. But we're asking for bottle donations. We have a link directly on the homepage of our website that people can go to. There's a big insignia, big logo right on the front page that will direct you how to donate a bottle if you can. And we're also looking for new members of Bourbon Hood, which is our monthly giving program that you can give annually now too. We have annual subscriptions, which we launched in March of 2020, I believe. Bourbon Hood launched. And with the idea that these monthly givers would pay for the infrastructure costs of the charity. This has been a hot topic over the past couple of weeks, that there's a misperception that charities get everything for free and that they don't have expenses. And charities are just like any other business. They require all of the same things that any other business requires to operate, and those things don't come for free, even if it's a charity. So we've asked those monthly givers to give as little as $10 a month, up to, I think the highest level is $500 a month. We're up to, I think, 600. I checked earlier today. We're up to 685 Bourbon Hood members active Bourbon Hood members giving on a monthly basis. So that money coming in allows us to cover all the costs of the charity. You name it, whether it's keeping the lights on, email systems, computer systems, any regular expense that you can think of for a business, Bourbon Charity likely has that same expense. Accounting, lawyers, you name it. And so we're at the point where we do have Bourbon Hood covering all of those expenses. And 15 months after Bourbon Hood was launched, we became a 100% public donation charity because of those monthly donors covering the infrastructure costs. And that means when we do an online fundraiser, every penny that gets pledged during that fundraiser is then distributed back out to the charities that are associated with that fundraiser in the form of a grant from Bourbon Charity. 100% of the money, which is actually something that just does not happen in the world of charity. And that's no knock against any charity that is not doing that.
That is, I've worked with a number of nonprofits in the past in a volunteer state, and it's unheard of to have your overhead taken care of. So whenever you do a revenue generating event, I worked with the community theater. Every one of their plays, a portion of the cost from the ticket sales was going to overhead for electricity, for the ability to pay for the rights to do it. You guys, when you do bingo or you do a raffle, there's certain licensure that you have to go through to be able to do those things. There's costs that are involved in it, and that's money that comes back out of it. And so I've been a member of Bourbon Hood since 2020. Are there any benefits to being a member of Bourbon Hood beyond just saying, like feeling good about hey, I help cover the costs of this?
Yes, I mean, being a member of Bourbon Hood, we have some single barrel selections that are done by Bourbon Hood. We've done quite a few of those over the last couple of years, where if you're in Bourbon Hood, you have the opportunity. If you want to be involved in a barrel pick, we select people from Bourbon Hood to help with those. Then you have the opportunity to buy those picks as well. If you're a member of Bourbon Hood, we do giveaways, some special bottles in Bourbon Hood. I think the last one we did was November or October or November of last year. So we'll have another giveaway coming up just for Bourbon Hood members. We'll do some bottles. We'll do some other cool things as well. We have a deal with Yeti coolers, so we'll probably be doing some Yeti cooler giveaways in Bourbon Hood. And we're in, if we can ever get past, this pandemic, we will be doing some in-person events as well that will be open just to Bourbon Hood members. Planning potentially some trips to Kentucky to do some fun things with distilleries there, if we can get past all this. But there's going to be. I mean, the Bourbon Hood is the lifeblood of Bourbon Charity at this point. Without those people giving on a monthly basis, we would not be able to, make as big of an impact as we've been able to over the past, year, as we've become a 100% public donation charity. So we're always going to be, trying to do really cool things for that group of people. There's a private Facebook page, for interacting and networking amongst Bourbon Hood members. So that's another cool thing that's out there as well. And we'll continue to add new things for Bourbon Hood members. But yeah, we're looking for more of those members now, because we are at the point where, yes, our costs are being covered, so that when we do a fundraiser, an online fundraiser, we can donate all that money. But we don't quite have the money coming in that's going to allow us to go out and purchase tons of inventory to continue to put bottles into these fundraisers. And on top of it, as we all know, these bottles, it's not like these bottles are readily available as well. So even if we have the money, we don't want to be going into secondary markets and paying, $5,000 for a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle to put it into a fundraiser. Now we definitely see the money back for that in a fundraiser or close to it. But, that's another reason why we're asking for bottle donations, because, yes, our name is Bourbon Charity, but it doesn't mean that we have like instant access to every great bottle out there. We're a young organization. I'm the first executive director of the organization, like really getting out there and trying to forge relationships with stores and with the distilleries directly. So we're young and we're learning along the way, and we're trying to build, something that's going to be here for a long time. It takes time, and we need help. And I'm more than okay with asking people for help. And so if anyone that's watching or anyone that sees this later, if you can donate a bottle or join Bourbon Hood, it would be huge for us. Again, it's right on our homepage, and it goes through Valentine's Day. We're gonna go through Valentine's Day, and we'll end it there, and then we'll go right into our Brackets for Bourbon first fundraiser for this year, and we'll just keep rolling.
So you're telling me that you can start a nonprofit and they don't just immediately start sending you the allocated hard to find bottles. It's not just like the floodgates open and Buffalo Trace and Heaven Hill are like, hey, here's all of this stuff. It's not how that works.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. We're working on that. We would like for that to eventually be the case, but we're still also in not everyone knows about Bourbon Charity. There's still plenty of people that we need to make aware of what we're doing. And, I think that sometimes, Bourbon Charity has done a lot in the past few years. And sometimes I think you become like a little bit of I don't want to say a victim of your success, but you have a lot of success right away. Mm-hmm. And Bourbon Charity has had a great deal of success over the last several years, and we're going to keep that going. But, at some point you have to, shift a little bit what you're doing, because things change, and the whiskey market has changed. It's not as easy to get a hold of bottles. Everything's more expensive. And we had a great benefactor in Brandon that had basically supplied us with everything that we could possibly want over the past few years. And that's just, again, it's just not possible anymore for that, to continue, which is why we're reaching out to our supporters and seeing if they can, help us out a little bit here. And believe me, if you give a really nice bottle of whiskey to the charity, it's going to do an absolute massive amount. If anyone follows the Instagram page, we put up some numbers last week where, since we've been doing the online fundraisers, we see a return of $3,250 for every bottle that's been in an online fundraiser, that's mind-boggling. I mean, when I was putting together the numbers and going back and looking through the amount of money that's been raised and the number of bottles that were in those fundraisers, and to see it come out as like $3,200 for every bottle is just incredible. So if you make a donation to us, if you can get rid of that, $200 bottle of whiskey, that's going to bring back, just based on what we've been able to do in the past. Of course, there's no guarantee that will continue, but we see around $3,250 in donations for every bottle that's in a raffle. So, I mean, that says a lot right there. And that's, just think of that when you're looking at your collection and you're reaching for that bottle, and it's hurting to give it away, to donate it. But just think about all the good that it will do for the organizations that we're supporting. I mean, $3,250 goes a long, long way for a lot of these charities.
That's that is a super impressive number, and that's the kind of data that my software analyst brain is like, oh wow, that's this is a thing I can bite my teeth into. But something that may help maybe frame this out. How much have you guys raised? Like, how much have you raised? Where's the money going to? Since the existence of Bourbon Charity in the last year, 2 years, whatever the number happens to be, we're talking about, we want to cover infrastructure costs, but what benefit are we seeing that is not to us personally, but to the charities?
Yeah, so we've raised just in the online fundraisers, which I had mentioned, we've done 22 of those since June of 2019. People can look at all this as well online. If you go to give.bourboncharity.org, that will show you every fundraiser that we've done online through the provider that we use, which is RallyUp. They run all the sweepstakes for us. You can go and you can look at all this. There's been, I think I said 366 bottles of whiskey in there. It's raised $1,192,072 through those online fundraisers. $1,192,072, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me that the whiskey community has come together like that in just a couple short years and raised that type of money. And we've issued 85 grants to 36 individual charities over that time period. So we have charity partners that we've given to multiple times, but we're not counting them like a second time, a third time. We're just counting them as one. We gave to them. That's one single organization. But 36 individual charities, and we've issued 85 grants over that period of time. We weren't 100% up until middle of last year, so not all of that money at the beginning was going back to the charities. We started out as 80% of donations were going to charity, and then it slowly, gradually moved up as we started Bourbon Hood. But in 15 months from starting Bourbon Hood to go from 80% to 100% is just unbelievable. So again, we're super thankful for those monthly givers, and we've had over 20,000 individual donations over that period of time since June of 2019, the first fundraiser. Over 20,000 individual donations. So there's a lot of people out there that our mission has resonated with to throw in a donation to one of these fundraisers, and it's incredible. And there's a lot more out there that we could reach, and that's why I appreciate you having me on to do something like this. So anyone that we can talk to, anyone that we can tell about our mission and what we're trying to do, it's much appreciated. The charity is, and I'm sorry to go on like this, but
no, that's what. Hey, just go.
I appreciate it. Overall, so it's been about $1.2 million through the online fundraisers. Then we've done a few things offline. We did last year. We did a first ever in-person event. We did a golf outing called the Bourbon Open in November. I mentioned those single barrel picks. So typically when we do a single barrel, we'll partner with a store or a bar or a restaurant, and we'll take a certain percentage or a certain dollar amount from every single sale from that single barrel, and then that will go to charity as well. So all in all, between all of those things, the online, the in-person, the single barrels, we've raised over $1.5 million for charity. And again, this is just going back to June of 2019. So this goes back to what I was saying before. There's been a lot of success here over these first couple years of Bourbon Charity to raise all of this money. And a lot of that is because we had access to these great bottles of whiskey. And so we're in a little bit of a transition here where we need to build up that inventory. We need to get more of those monthly donors to get a little bit more cash coming in so that we can go out and make some purchases if we need to help beef up that inventory. And this is all in the name of trying to do some really good stuff for, the charities that we're actually allowing all of our donors and the community to vote for. So it's really this really cool, interaction between us and charities and this whiskey community, and bringing that all together to do some really cool stuff.
So I've been taking some notes here. So you see me looking down. I have Post-it notes everywhere. This is just how my brain functions. So I'm paying attention. So the through line, the entire story here is that so Bourbon Charity has been around roughly since June of 2019.
That was the first online fundraiser, yes.
There have been 22 online fundraisers since then, giving away 366 bottles approximately. So it's about 16 bottles per giveaway, with a return on a bottle of $3,200 per bottle, which is largely coming from one person's collection.
This is correct. Yes, that's all correct. Those numbers are right. And like I said, I mean, for Brandon to start the charity the way he did with his whiskey collection, and then just basically take his entire whiskey collection and donate it to Bourbon Charity is just unreal. He's such a great guy to have done that. And yeah, so I mean, if you think about it, it's mind blowing.
It really is. And you're looking at, over $1 million raised, and you're starting at 80% of those proceeds are going to the charity. I don't think you can find many charities anywhere that are brand new that are sharing at that level, right? Because most new startups that have significant overhead costs, and in the first 5 years, they're lucky to give back 30, 40%. You're starting at 80, and now you're getting to where you're reaching 100% proceeds are going back to the charity, because you have this auxiliary group. If you were to think about, in like high school terms, it's the booster club that pays for the outfits for the football team and for the new, locker room. So that way, all of the funds that come in go into the program itself. It's pretty amazing. And the fact that you just recently came on as executive director in the last few months, is that right?
Yeah, October of last year, I started on. It's a part-time gig that takes up much more than part of my time.
There's no such thing as part-time when it comes to nonprofit. I was a business director at a small community theater, and that ended up having me building things and running advertising and installing a sign. That's what happens with nonprofit organizations that you volunteer at. But this thing has functioned in a sort of autonomous fashion until then. It's a sign of maturity to me that they're looking into wanting an executive director, wanting to be able to move it forward and grow it at a significant level. So you're looking at you've raised $1.2 million since its existence. You're probably targeting wanting to raise $1.2 million a year at that point, because we're going 2019 to now. And
yeah, I mean, we would of course love to. So we always want to raise at least $1 more than the previous year. And I was actually having this conversation with one of the board members today. That yes, that's awesome. We need to have these goals to continue to grow, to continue to push the organization forward, to continue to really entwine ourselves into the fabric of the American whiskey community, which we fully intend to do. And but we also have to look at these points in time where we're sort of in one now, that we have to look at setting ourselves up for that success down the line, for that success next year, the year after that, 5 years down the road. We want to be here I honestly see this organization being around from June of 2019, and hopefully it's here with the whiskey community until the end of time, because I really do think that it can be that. I think it can be that place for everyone that's involved in whiskey that is also wants to do something charitable. I want Bourbon Charity to be the place to go to do that charitable giving. And that's what we're building towards. And there may be some ebbs and flows in that plan that, we have to be prepared for. We have to not, get upset if, we maybe don't meet what we did the previous year. And that's not to give ourselves a break for any reason. That's just to think more about the future and think about things that we can do now that maybe won't give us the immediate gratification that we all want, but next year it will help us exponentially compared to this year or the year before, and then continue to do those things, to make those types of plans, to make the relationships, to make the connections that will set us up to then continually, grow this to not just, my whole plan is this to grow beyond the bourbon community. I mean, it may be called Bourbon Charity, but we want to attract other people into this, under this umbrella as well, that maybe, in adjacent things that are adjacent to whiskey, people that enjoy cigars, all these craft beer, all these groups and communities that are adjacent to us. I would love to touch those people as well, and to bring them into this community and get them on board with what we're doing. But again, it's taking these steps now, these small steps to eventually get to that point. We have plenty of room to grow within just the American whiskey community. So we've got plenty of work to do here first.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you mentioned that you have a board member you're talking to. So there's a board that exists, which is always encouraging for anybody that's involved in a nonprofit at all. If there's a board, there's some governance, there's things that are in place. And oftentimes, having been a board member of things in the past, you can start looking at things as, last year's successful year becomes next year's benchmark, right? And that isn't necessarily a recipe, exactly what you're saying, a recipe for sustainable success, because market conditions vary, the appetite varies, whether you have available bottles to you, there's so many things that go into it, and you cannot let great be the enemy of good, because you're doing good, right? At the end of the day, let's just say you raised $10 less this year than you did last year, you still raised a bunch of money for a positive cause.
Exactly. And I think that's, the approach that I'm trying to take to this, and just setting us up for that continued success and putting us in the position to then build on those successes to make them bigger each time. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, you had mentioned we do have a board of directors. We have 5 people on the board of directors currently. There's potential for that to expand. When I came on board, I wanted to immediately establish an advisory committee to the charity. So we have a couple of people on an advisory committee, people outside of the organization that we can go to if we're having problems from a charity standpoint where we need advice, or if we need just advice in general operation of the business. We have a couple really sharp people currently on that advisory board. David Mandel, people may know, was one of the co-founders of Bardstown Bourbon Company. He's the chairman of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and he just took a job last fall with Kentucky Owl as the president of their real estate company to get their distillery built in Bardstown. And so we actually just had a conversation with him today. So we have people like him, Tim Pearsont, who's the co-founder and CEO of Chattanooga Whiskey, is on our advisory committee. So another person who started a distillery from scratch, has great business sense, great knowledge of business, great knowledge of the distilling world, a guy that we can go to and just bounce things off of and ask for advice. And then our board is absolutely incredible too. Brandon's the chairman of the board. His brother Brian is the treasurer. He's a military veteran. A friend of Brandon's, Chris Adams, he's the secretary, great. He's in real estate, great business person. Charles Morrell, he's our director of donor relations. Super smart guy. He's in the medical field. And then we just added most recently to our board of directors, John Edwards, who most people will probably know in the whiskey community as John from Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Super smart guy, really obviously well connected within the American whiskey community. IT guy, just, I mean, everyone from the board to the advisory committee is just super sharp, really smart people. And so this organization is definitely, has some great leadership and some great people that we can go to if we need help or advice. And I would hope that I'm doing the organization well by steering the ship on a daily basis.
I'd say, I work with a lot of people that do a lot of directing type stuff, and I'd say you're doing a pretty good job. One of the things that's super comforting for a person who gives, for a person who's a part of this, is that often, like you're rolling through this list of folks that are part of the board or advisory committee or involved in Bourbon Charity. It can feel like name dropping, and are you doing that for notoriety? But at the end of the day, it's comforting for a giver because you can know these are people, these are people that have significant skin in the game, right? To lend their name and their knowledge and their ability. They're a great resource for you guys, but they're also kind of a security blanket for us because, David Mandel has a lot to lose if he's involved in a shady business. John, like all of these people would have significant things to lose, yourself included, because those things come up, who is this? Where did this come from? You're talking about a lot of people don't know what it is yet. If I just approach and knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm raising money for a charity, do I have any credibility? But if you give some degree of notoriety to it, then you're starting to kind of assuage people's fears. So you've mentioned there's a board, you're the executive director, there's members of Bourbon Hood, there's an advisory committee. How do you select what charities you give money to? Like, are they drawing out of a hat? Who makes these decisions?
So typically we have a discussion, as the board on particular charities, like charity categories that we would like to support. So this year we had people vote on international charities. So we then did some research, some vetting of some international charities. One is Charity Water, which has been supported by Bourbon Charity in the past, and just doing research and looking for some organizations that are, like you just said, are well-known, have some leadership in place, have some vetting that's been done by there's organizations out there that do vetting of charities. You can go to these websites. Charity Navigator is one, GuideStar is another. Like, these are organizations that are solely in the business of looking into charities and vetting them and making sure that, like, they're being run correctly and money isn't being wasted. So those are resources for us as well when we're doing research. So we'll come up with some categories. Like I said, this year it was international women's and girls charities that were specifically doing work for women and girls, men's health, international women's, children's hospitals, also just children's charities. We let Bourbon Hood, I think we let Bourbon Hood vote on children's hospitals and food banks. So I can't remember all the categories off the top of my head right now, but we come up with those, we do some vetting, we find some charities within those categories that we feel are really great charities that we would be more than happy to support. And then we let the donors and we let the public vote on those charities and make the selection so that they have ownership as well in what we're doing. So, and then we let Bourbon Hood specifically. That's another thing. We could put that on the list of benefits of Bourbon Hood. You get a direct say in some of the charities that are selected. And like I said, this year we gave Bourbon Hood the option to pick from children's hospitals and food banks this year, which are some of the most important charities that we support as Bourbon Charity every year. So we felt like letting Bourbon Hood pick those this year was kind of special.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I knew the answer to the question before I asked it, but most of the folks that watch us may not know that. And I super appreciate being able to participate in that decision-making process because, most charities you just trust to do those things. And you guys went out and selected a slate of really, really positive things. The other side of it is like, I feel bad because I want to select all of them. Like, give it to all of them, but you have to make a choice at some point. And that's nice.
I think we gave for just the main, like the 6 core charities, I think we had 24 different options between the categories for people to choose from. And then Bourbon Hood had, I think, at least 4 options, I think, in each category that they chose from. So, we're looking at like, over 30 charities that we've considered that we would be more than happy to give some money to throughout the course of the year. But yeah, I mean, and then just allowing our supporters to have a say in all of that. And if you'll allow me, I'll tell you all the charities that were selected this year.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I'll tell you, when you send it out, you get a web form. You're like, this will only be a few things. Like it's a quick survey. And I open it up and I'm like, so I just walked away for a few minutes. I'm like, go get a drink. I'm gonna be here for a minute because I have to think about this. It wasn't like, pick one of 3. It was make a lot of choices. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that you took the time to like think about it and make those selections, in a thoughtful way, because we want people to do that. We provided, the websites of every charity so that people could do their own research and look into these charities that we're offering up for people to vote on and take a look at them themselves, and then, make an informed decision on who they want us to support. So the charities that were picked this year, I'll start with the Bourbon Hood selections. And they selected Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital here in Chicago, that's pretty cool. That's near and dear to me because it's here in Chicago. And then they picked Norton Children's Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky, which is very cool. It's always great to give some money to charities that are in Kentucky, where a great majority of our whiskey is coming from. And then they picked Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee in Nashville as one of the food banks, and then Dare to Care Food Bank also in Louisville. And we've supported all of those charities before, except this will be our first time supporting Lurie Children's Hospital here in Chicago. So those are really cool selections by Bourbon Hood. And then we have Charity Water is back as a charity this year. They build clean drinking water wells in all over the world, but primarily in Africa. We've actually been, I'm sorry to go on a rant like this, but
No.
we've, Bourbon Charity has supported 19 different water projects that Charity Water has been involved in building. You know, over the course since 2019, we've been involved. We have helped to fund 19 clean drinking water projects across the world with the money that we've been able to donate to Charity Water. There's 4 actually going on right now. That an email went out last week about everything that we're up to, and there was some information on the 4 water projects that we're helping to fund right now. You can read all about them. There's links in that email or even on our website to learn about those. But like, how cool is that? Like, to be involved in 19 different clean drinking water projects around the world over the course of, you know, a couple of years is just, that's hundreds of thousands of people
Right.
that now have access to clean drinking water because of this incredible community of people who love whiskey. You know, hundreds of thousands of people have clean drinking water now because of everyone out there who's made a donation. It's just unbelievable.
It's absolutely something that really matters, because, you know, I sit here as you're talking, and I have a cup of water that I just walk downstairs and pour it in a glass, and that's as simple as it is for most of the Western nations. Like, that's just what it is here in North America for most people. Being able to be a part of providing one of the base ingredients. You're called Bourbon Charity. The base ingredient of bourbon is water. Without water, the rest of it doesn't matter. And you're able to have 19 projects that are going to provide hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people with water. You know, it's a fantastic story in the end. And, you know, regardless of the story, it's a fantastic impact, you know.
Yeah, it's just when, you know, when I've been going back and like looking at all of these numbers and then trying to put those into a way that really speaks to people, you know, I think that one is just absolutely mind-boggling, massively huge. Like, I'll say it again, 19 projects, hundreds of thousands of people now have clean drinking water because of, you know, not just the money we've given, but we've contributed to these projects that wouldn't be possible without some of the money that we've given. So awesome organization. So happy that they got selected back in this year. What I'm really happy and really excited about is we are going to be partnering with Bourbon Women Foundation this year. They're one of the charities that was selected from the women and girls category. What's so cool is they're brand new foundation, 501c3, and their mission is to help women with scholarships and help get them into the beverage industry. And so that's going to be kind of one of the main missions of the Bourbon Women Foundation is offering those scholarships to women and helping them find jobs in the beverage industry that we all very much love. So kind of cool that we're going to be able to team up with them as they're in their infancy. We're new. We know what it's like for them to start from scratch. So it'll be fun to help them, you know, kind of get their feet and get up and going. We have Children's Tumor Foundation, which has been, I think, been involved with Bourbon Charity every single year. And we've given to them probably coming up on almost 10 times. And just an incredible organization as well. There's a disease where children get these tumors, and I can't explain all the scientific and biology behind it, but they are working to help find a cure for this disease. And a lot of the money we've given to them has gone to some summer camps that they run for children that have these tumors in their body, and they're able to interact with people who have the same thing going on in their life, and do these really fun excursions and activities at the summer camp. So a lot of the money that we've given has gone towards putting that on. They bring in kids from all over the country to kind of get away from their everyday life and experience, nature and tons of outdoor activities, and with people that understand their what's going on with them in their own life, because they're having the same things going on with their own life. So awesome organization. I did a couple events with them, which a lot of this doesn't show up in the numbers of Bourbon Charity. We do things, events with a lot of our partners. I did a happy hour with them last year, made some cocktails and hung out with them, and had a fun time. Did a cooking event with them as well. This is Children's Tumor Foundation. They had a chef do a couple dishes and a dessert, and I paired a couple of cocktails to go along with the dinner and the dessert. So we do things like that too that don't really get, like, people don't really see, which is totally fine. But like the relationships that we've been able to build with a lot of these organizations is also just incredible, to be able to do things like that and to interact with them and to see like the impact that the dollars or the checks that we're writing actually have on people is pretty cool. And we're going to be doing a better job of sharing these stories over this year and as we go forward, because these are important things to for people to know about, rather than just seeing a picture of a check that we wrote to somebody, but seeing the actual impact that those dollars are making. And that's something that we're going to strive to be better at, to communicate to everyone that's supporting us. And we're definitely working in that direction. And we've started to do a little bit of that, and it's just a matter of actually getting that information and communicating it back to all of our supporters. And then just to run through the other ones, new category this year was social justice. So we have Equal Justice Initiative as one of our charities. It'll be great to give them some money. They're doing mostly legal work with laws and trying to make sure that our system here in the U.S. is equal and just for everyone. Prostate Cancer Foundation has been, we've supported them for many years. Of course, one of the OGs, one of the original charities of that we supported. Brandon's father had prostate cancer, and that's why they became one of the first charities that we ever gave to. And then Fisher House Foundation, it's a military charity that actually builds, like, if you're familiar with Ronald McDonald House, with like children's hospitals, it allows a place for like families to stay if their children is in the hospital, their child is in the hospital. Kind of same concept for Fisher House. It is a place for military families to stay if they have a veteran or a member of the military that is, in a hospital. And so they're usually built near hospitals. And so it's a great organization to be able to help out and help them, build these places for, the families of veterans or military personnel to stay at if they ever have a health issue and have to be in the hospital. So that's like, I know that was a lot of me talking. It's been a lot of me talking all night, but
hey, that's what we're here for. That's absolutely what we're here for.
Yeah, and I appreciate it.
You connected on that just a second ago. So there's a lot of things that you guys are doing that aren't necessarily being shared out, and you're making it a goal going forward to share those stories. And it can feel a little altruistic to share those, because you're like, we're not doing that. We're not doing the positive thing to be able to tell people we're doing the positive thing. But stories are very sticky. That's why I started doing any of this, is that you have data and you have stories, and you can tell people a number. You can show them a check and they won't connect with it. But if you tell them the positive story that it did, they will connect, and they'll tell someone else, and that someone else will come and they'll be a part of it as well. And so while because it does feel weird saying, oh, look at what we're doing for good, the goal is you're telling people that so they'll go out and get someone else and bring you more resources so you can do more good.
Exactly. And just like you said, it's great to see those numbers, and we want to communicate those too. We want to show in black and white, wow, look at all this money that was raised. Yeah, it's great to know, but I do feel like it's more important to know, what did those dollars do for someone, and we will it's our commitment to going forward, to share more of those stories, and to make sure that we are letting everyone know, where did your $10 that you donated go? What did it do? And it's important. I think it's important to do that. If I could tell one more story about that,
you can tell as many stories as you want to. I got time.
So Dare to Care Food Bank, it's one of the food banks that Bourbon Hood selected this year. Again, another organization that we've been involved with, I think, every single year, and we've been able to partner with them. We help them build what they call the community kitchen, and this was shared out on our Instagram page. There was a great video last week about the community kitchen. It's in a neighborhood in Louisville, because of, and this is, yes, it sounds, braggart, but because of the money that we've been able to, as a community, through Bourbon Charity, give to Dare to Care, they were able to build this community kitchen that has done so many amazing things for people that are food insecure in the Louisville, Kentucky area. They call it Kentuckiana. I think it's 13 counties in that part of Kentucky and Indiana, southern Indiana, that helps people who are food insecure, and they've served thousands of meals to these people that really, really need it. They launched a program where they're even creating frozen meals that they're able to give out to some of their charity partners, that get distributed to people. They can throw in their freezer. A lot of people don't know how to cook. A lot of people don't have the time to cook, even if they do. And to be able to pull something out of the freezer and heat up in the microwave or the oven is just absolutely massive to their life, not only feeding them, but saving them time and energy. Mm-hmm. And this community kitchen is largely built because of the money that Bourbon Charity has been able to donate over, the course of a couple of years. And to see that video, to see the impact that they've been able to make. Again, we're talking about, thousands upon thousands of people that are able to get a hot meal or multiple meals, or have their meals taken care of because of what we, not Bourbon Charity, but we as a community in the American whiskey community through Bourbon Charity have been able to do. And I don't know, hearing those stories and seeing those things combined with the numbers, sometimes it's it's just awesome. It really is mind-boggling sometimes. Yeah. And
I think you can't, so I don't think you can overstress the importance of what you're talking about here. So you mentioned this frozen meals things, and frozen meals is not something where you just make food and you freeze it, right? Like it's not as simple as that, right?
Right.
Whenever a food nutritionist person, they have to come together. Okay, this is going to survive a freezer, but what you're providing to people, and I think about this because I've worked with a number of people in a number of different ways, but providing a frozen meal to a person allows for a non-skilled individual to be able to warm that food up. And so if I were to think I am a 11-year-old child, my mom works two jobs, and the only way I may get a meal is if I have something I can pop out and I can warm up in an oven. I don't have to worry about what are the ingredients and what are the cook times and what are all of these things. You're solving a number of problems, or for the mom who is, or the dad who's working two jobs and just does not have I work one job. I have two children. I live a pretty decent lifestyle. And some days at the end of the day, I don't feel like cooking dinner, and for someone who's living under significantly more stress than me, I can only imagine. I cannot live that. And so that's, while it seems like something small, it is not. It's not something small at all.
No, not at all. And just to be able to make that type of an impact because of this
Right.
is it's just awesome. It's just that's all I can say. It's just awesome that because of this brown liquid that we all enjoy so much, we're able to do so many just unbelievable things for so many people. It's gratifying for sure. I mean, and even if you're giving that, whatever the lowest donation is to a fundraiser, or if you're doing $10 a month as a Bourbon Hood member, like that money matters.
Right.
Like that money matters. It makes an absolutely massive impact on what we're all trying to do. So, I mean, I've heard people say like, well, I can only give, $10 or $15. You know what? If you can, we'd love to have it. We'd love to be able to put it to good use.
Not only would you love to have it, but you're also evidencing that you're a good steward of it once you do have it. Because that's the other thing is that people get caught up in, and we've talked about that already a number of times. So I won't go back that direction, but you have the capabilities to prove that $10 is going to go to a good use, as opposed to I have no idea where it's going.
Exactly, and again, these are things as and I'm learning this too. I've never been involved in the charitable world other than writing a check or making a donation in the past. Like I'm learning along the way too, the best way for us to communicate to everyone out there that is a supporter now or a potential supporter. Like I take this personally. I want to do everything I can to be as open and as transparent as I possibly can be, and give everyone as much information as possible about what we're up to, because I mean that only makes it better for everyone. And we don't have anything to hide or to, we want to be just honest about like we have things we have to pay for, and and like it's just how I am personally, and it's just the organization that we want to be. Like we get it. People when they make a donation, they want to know what's happening with it. We're held to a standard that most companies are not held to, and that's totally fine, and we're totally cool with that, and we want to embrace that, and we want to have conversations with people about what we're up to, and if we can glean some advice from people, we're happy to take it as well. Like we're people. We're trying to do the best that we can and make the biggest impact that we can on these organizations that we're supporting. And we want to do it in the most efficient way that we can, and we're striving for that every single day. And just know that as long as I'm at the helm of the ship, that's how it's going to be, and that's how I want it to be. And so, and I will say, like, anyone watching this, you can email me, chris@bourboncharity.org, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you about anything that we're doing. You want to help? You have a company that wants to get involved, or you just want to get involved and make a donation, whatever it might be. I'm open to that conversation. You can message me at Bourbon Charity on Instagram, on Facebook. You can message me at Urban Bourbonist on Instagram, on my page, and I'm happy to answer questions and have a conversation. We just want to bring as many people as we can under this umbrella of Bourbon Charity, and really with the goal of just trying to help people, and I know that many thousands of people out there want to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's evidence about the turnout that you guys have. For most people that participate in raffles and things like that are smart enough to recognize that there's a very significant chance that you're not going to win anything. And so you're still going to participate because it's going to a positive. It's not like some of the raffles that, you see on secondary market pages where somebody's just raising money. Like, you don't have that same type of attachment or participation in it. And it's not about taxable donation. It's not, it's none of that. It is, there's a positive benefit, and I might get something out of it, but someone else for sure is going to get something out of it.
Yeah. And, of course, those people are the best donors that are, making the donation and saying, hey, if I win, I win. Great. If I don't, well, it's going to a good cause. But we're happy to take donations from the people who are just trying to win a bottle of whiskey as well. That's totally fine too. Like, if you want to make a donation because you want a chance at a, Pappy 15 or something, that's totally fine. Like that.
the money all spends the same way.
Yeah, we're all about that too. But right. No, I would agree. Like, from everything we've seen, we have had, now I'm probably jinxing myself, but we have had so little negative feedback that we see that people get it. Like, people know what we're trying to accomplish. People get what we're trying to do. People understand the mission. People understand that the charity has expenses. People understand all of these things. And there's a loud minority that makes themselves known that we have to address at times, because it feels like it's much more than a minority. But when you really look at it, the whiskey community is absolutely incredible. People get it. People that love whiskey are generally just really great people, to be honest. I've had very few negative interactions in the world of whiskey, and there are quite a number of different viewpoints, across the spectrum of, you name it, to politics, to sports, to whatever it might be. But we all come together around whiskey, and we find that common ground, and all that other stuff melts away, basically. And we're just whiskey lovers, and whiskey lovers that want to do really great things for other people. I really feel that way about 99.9% of the people that I have encountered in the whiskey community.
And I think what you'll find, and I may be wrong here, but a lot of times I'm not, is you'll see an increase in negative attention as you gain notoriety and traction, right? As you become more and more known, just more people pop up, and it's, I guess you'll notice more of it because the majority of people who are happy are usually more silent. You don't get as many people coming across me like, "Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing," as you do like, I I hate this thing or whatever. Don't think this is the right charity, or I can't believe you'd run it this particular way or whatever. Those people are always, the Karens of the world are always going to be very loud, but the people that are appreciative sometimes aren't. So that's where we fall down and we're like, oh, hey, you guys are doing great. At the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's just something just from our perspective that we just need to also not be so sensitive to at times. Like, just roll with the negative comment. You want to react to everything, and you want to defend yourself in every single situation. But yeah, it's I think part of it, and exactly what you said, as you become more popular, as you're making a greater impact, as you're reaching more people, you'll see more of those things just for that fact that you're reaching more people. So yeah, that's actually great advice from you, and great perspective from you for me. Like when I'm seeing some of these things come across my computer screen, but like I said.
But hey, that's a badge that you're doing something right, because if nobody's getting upset, then you're probably not making a difference. Is at least been my experience. We did have a question that came across earlier. I want to get back to that before we get too far. So raffles can be a tricky thing to navigate because there are some legal implications that come into play, and then you guys are advertising on social media. Do you have a problem with social media, Instagram, Facebook, whoever, like shutting down whenever you're advertising you're doing this because it is a raffle?
So to be clear, they are not actually raffles. So okay. They are run as sweepstakes. So yes, there's tickets. You're entering into the fundraiser, and it's very much like a raffle, but it is a sweepstakes. So you can get into any of our online fundraisers for free. You do not actually have to give a donation. Of course, we would prefer that you did, but there is an option to go on to every single fundraiser page as it's going on to enter into the sweepstakes for free. So it is an option to do. And we've had people do it, and that's totally fine. Like we allow it and we accept it. That's totally cool. But almost nobody does that, but you can. And so running our things as a sweepstakes allows for more people to participate, because raffles are actually in some states illegal because it's considered gambling. So
in the state of Kentucky, you have to have a license to do it if you do it more than twice, even if it's for a nonprofit. Yeah,
so that's how we address that, is through the sweepstakes style fundraiser. And to this point, everything's been great. It's worked out very well. In terms of Facebook and Instagram, nothing has been like taken down or anything like that that I know of. There have been things we've tried to promote that they wouldn't do the promotion, even though we were trying to pay them to promote the fundraisers, because when it gets into alcohol, there's all sorts of weird things that get filtered and whatever. But yeah, for the most part, everything has been great as we're trying to do those things. Again, if someone can't donate a bottle to us, if someone can't join Bourbon Hood, the next best thing that people can do for Bourbon Charity is to promote us, to tell people about us, to share our posts and stories on Instagram and Facebook with their timeline, their friends, their private groups that they're in. Like, we have found that the person to person, word of mouth advertising has been far and away, like it is with most things, far and away the best thing for Bourbon Charity in terms of our promotion of what we're doing. Like, you telling your friend who tells two other people is way more valuable to us than trying to buy an ad on Facebook or Instagram in the midst of a fundraiser. So if you can't donate a bottle, if you can't join Bourbon Hood, we get it, we understand. But it's super easy to share a post on Instagram or Facebook to your friends, to your groups, and that would be absolutely massive for us to reach more people and for more people to know about us. And your, you telling someone specifically about us is very powerful. Your endorsement, an individual's endorsement to their friends is very powerful for us. So we'll take that over a donation any day. That's huge for us.
Well, and that's one of the good and bad things that social media has done, is it's given everyone a platform to speak, a pulpit to talk about what they like or don't like, for that matter. And spreading the message of whatever you're doing is a fantastic way, because it does, people that trust me, if I share something, people that trust me now have some degree of trust in the message that I'm trying to share. And if I say, hey, Bourbon Charity is doing great stuff, go look at it, they're more likely to relate to it because I have, a small platform, somebody might listen to it. So it's a good call out.
Yeah. I mean, think of your own, the people that you follow on social media, or that you've become friends with on social media. You're much more likely to listen to a recommendation from them than you are to some random person or to seeing an ad come across your timeline. So it's really big. It's in anything, but it's been huge for us. And just from talking to people, like, I'll say, well, how did you hear about us? Well, my friend's in Bourbon Hood and he told me about you guys. And that's like, I want to hear that over and over as much as I can. Like, that's huge for us.
Right. And that ties into, there was a thread of conversation that we had maybe a month ago in Instagram direct messages. We were talking about the titled influencer and what that means. And I have a feeling you don't see a whole lot of negativity on anything, but I have a feeling this one did come from that. That titled influencer and, having a position of authority in people's lives has this negative connotation. And I think we both agree to some degree that it's asinine. But what do you think the source of that is? Like, we got into it a little bit online, but I'd like to continue that maybe.
The source of the negative connotation around influencer?
Yeah. Why is it viewed as a negative thing?
Well, I think it's viewed as a negative thing because there are people that are definitely inauthentic that are promoting things that are, obviously something that they're not into, or it's a garbage product or whatever it might be. So I think this whole idea of an influencer has been tarnished by those types of things, by the person who will take, $100 to post about anything, you name it. If someone offers them the money, they'll give it their endorsement. And I feel like that inauthenticity is what has fueled the negative connotation to the word influencer. I mean, I feel like it has to be. Like, people think it's inauthentic. That what a lot of people do with their platform, and then that just leads to, the negativity around the so-called influencer, or someone that's, has a following that people listen to.
Yeah. And so you were a brand ambassador, I think you said, for Bourbon Charity before you became the executive director. And part of that is kind of portraying some degree of an influence on social media and face-to-face and whatever else. So do you just ignore this negative connotation that comes in on influencer and just continue down your path? Do you try to pick up a new moniker? Like, how do you reconcile that?
Well, I floated the idea of like, I think, did we talk about like digital creator or social? I forget what the term that I had tried to float out there as, I think, creator. But then someone was like, well, everyone's a creator. Everyone that posts something is a digital creator. And I was like, well, that's a good point. Like, if you post something online, you're creating something digitally. So, but for me personally, like when I'm doing something with like the Urban Bourbonist page, I'm really coming from my own perspective. Like, and people can take me for my word or they don't have to. But like I post things that are of interest to me, and like I'm not going to put something on my page because someone wanted to pay me. I have done paid sponsorships on my page. Very, 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 very few. But I would never do one unless it was something that I personally that's something that I absolutely 100% like and would use or drink or whatever it might be myself. But that's me, and I can see though sometimes that things may come off inauthentic not because of what I maybe said, but because of people's perception of other people that they then transfer to me or to you or to whoever it might be, and they take someone else's inauthenticity and they project it onto whoever that they
experience onto you.
Yeah, whoever they see come up in their feed, like, oh, this guy's just posting about this because of they paid him to do it or they sent him a free bottle. And believe me, I've received many, many free bottles of whiskey, and I've posted about many, many free bottles of whiskey that I've received. But nothing for me goes on my page that I honestly don't like. Or if I've posted about things I don't like, and I say it. I say this isn't for me, or I'll say, this is more
of
a
opinion isn't for sale. Your opinion may be for sale, but your positive opinion's not. It's they may ask you to do something and you may come across say it's negative. They may have paid you to give a negative review. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and honestly, like if I'm a very well-known Jim Beam fan. If Jim Beam wants to pay me money to post about Jim Beam products, I'll take the money because I already like the product. But Jim Beam's not knocking on my door to promote their products. But I mean, for me personally, I'm just not a person that will like post something on my page from, fly-by-night distillery that came up that sourced, 3.5-year-old whiskey from MGP and put a fun label on their bottle. Like,
right.
That's not me. Like, you can scroll through my page, you're not going to see it. But I've gotten my fair share of people like trying to say to me like, oh, you're just posting about this because, they sent you the bottle. And it will be a bottle that I paid for myself.
I think that's probably just somebody wishing that somebody would send them a bottle. At the end of the day, it's like, why can't I get a bottle?
Yeah.
But I think
and there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, I think what you've also described is that you use the term creator, and you say, somebody said, well, everybody's a creator, and I don't think that's necessarily true. They may capture something, but they're not creating anything. So there's a difference, whether you're an artist or a photographer or whatever else. Like, I can take my cell phone and I can walk out the front door and I can take a picture of my front yard. And my wife, who is an amateur photographer, will go out with a camera and she will make sure the framing is right and the ISO is right and the f-stop. And there's a degree of artistry that goes into it. And so what you've described is you are legitimately creating, you're not capturing. And there's a difference between those two things.
Yeah, and I think about it like, we touched on this at the beginning of this conversation, that I'm trying to use my Instagram page as a creative outlet, and I view it more of a journalistic style type of Instagram page. Yeah, sure. I have pictures on my page where I say 2 words or very little and post the picture, and that's the post. And there's really not a whole lot of meat to the post, but I generally try to think deeply about what I'm posting about, and I try to think about. I try to be very thoughtful about what I'm posting, and I do a lot of tasting notes. I've gotten a lot of shit from people about tasting notes, and I honestly do not care about your opinion about my tasting notes, because I like to do it. Like, that is part of my experience with whiskey. Is that's how I can communicate about whiskey. I don't really know another way to communicate about whiskey other than telling some of the statistics about the bottle, proof points, age, mash bill, whatever. I like to talk about what I'm tasting because I find it interesting to hear when other people talk about what they're tasting. So I put my stuff out into the world about what I'm experiencing with a whiskey, and that's the number one thing that people give me shit about, that I'll get a nasty DM about, is like, bullshit, you tasted cedar wood. And I'm like, well, honestly, cedar wood is not like a really exotic flavor, but yes, I tasted it, and you might not.
Right. How can someone tell you what you tasted?
Exactly.
That's not a thing. And you 100% could be full of shit. But
exactly.
I'll never, ever know. Like, I'll never know. So there's no point in arguing that discussion. There's a handful of folks, and this is a thing, and there's going to be a little bit of a tangent here. There's a handful of folks that are on Instagram that get off on the fact that I'm the only one that knows how to taste whiskey because I have been classically trained, or I'm a went through a sommelier program, whatever. Kudos to you. You're a professional. I don't think any of us are purporting to be professionals. We're not out there trying to be, master blenders. I'm trying to create a sense of nostalgia with anything. And I generally don't give a lot of tasting notes either because it's not a place where I'm strong. But if it reminds me of a thing, and that's why I like brown spirits specifically, is that they're very communal in nature. And if it reminds me of something that happened in my life, or a particular core memory, those are the things that I really enjoy. I was listening to YouTube live earlier with the Monday Night Sucks guys, and Tim had said, oh, this tastes like whenever I was a kid, I used to go to the farmer's market with my dad, and they would have sugar cane that was in a cellophane wrapper, but that booth for the sugar cane was sitting in the sun, and so that cellophane got hot, and this is a very distinct flavor. I don't know what the hell that smell or tastes like, but he took me on a journey, and that's what I'm here for.
That is the coolest tasting note I've ever heard. I mean, that's the shit I'm here for as well. Like, I want to hear those things, and I absolutely love that stuff, and that's why I put my notes out in the world, into the world. And a lot of and I've gone around and around on this. I've said it a million times, but a lot of the tasting notes that I get go back to candy. I ate just an unbelievable amount of candy when I was a kid. So a lot of my flavor memories are candy. And the whiskey might not taste like that damn candy that I'm describing, but that's what it reminds me of.
It tastes like the memory of that candy to you. And that's the
exactly
from some time ago, and I did a series of tastings with some of my coworkers. Like, I started collecting whiskey with the idea of, like, I'm going to have like a tasting party at my house. And then I had children, and I learned about this idea of there's like everyday clean, and there's like people are coming into my house that don't live here clean, right? Because we live in our house. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Well, then when the pandemic hit, it was like a perfect situation where I could Now do the tasting. I just ship the things to the people, and all I have to do is like keep this area clean, and no one knows. So we would run through tastings, and most of my, this is coworkers. Most of them are not into whiskey like this. They're just
Yeah.
not. And that's okay, because this is just a fun thing to do. But whenever they would say, I taste banana, I was like, okay, what do you mean by banana? Is it banana runts? Is it artificial banana flavoring? Is it banana pudding? Is it a ripe banana? Is it a old, like a green? There's so many different flavors, and they mean something different to every human being. And so
Absolutely.
I don't care whether it's there or not there. Like that's not what it is. It's what does it remind you of? You tell me the story. It's taking you on a journey, because that's what we're here for.
Yep. And that I love that way that you explain that, because I've done some whiskey tastings with people, and the whole concept of when I do a tasting with someone is just to get them to think more deeply about what they're tasting. And you hit it on the head when, like you said, your friend said banana, and then you went deeper. You're like, is it this type of flavor banana, like runts? Is it a ripe banana? And I think, getting people to think more deeply about what they're tasting, instead of just the first thing on the surface that comes to mind, is what's so cool about drinking whiskey with friends or anyone. Is just, I don't know, but I'm a nerd. Like, I like to dive deep into these things and like get under the hood and like start messing around with all the parts and getting out all the crazy wrenches to deal with all
Right.
the different things you encounter, because it just makes it, you have a deeper connection to it when you start thinking about it that way, in my opinion. Some people just like to drink it and say it tastes good, which is totally cool too.
It's cool, but it's tough to understand. I know, like I'm like, okay, cool, that's cool, and then I go home, I'm like, how can you live like that? It's tough to get. And I'm with you. Like, so you said you came through craft beer to this, right? And so craft beer had a very similar thing, and I relate mine back to a movie came out. I grew up in Kentucky, so bourbon has always been a thing, um, just around, because that's what it was. But I was in '80s and '90s and 2000s when it didn't matter. All the way up to about 2001, bourbon didn't matter. But in the early 2000s, a movie came out called Sideways. I don't know if you've ever watched that or
Yep,
not.
yeah, great
About,
movie.
right. So it started. That was the first time, rural Kentucky myself started thinking about food or drink at a deeper level, because he had this insatiable passion for Pinot Noir that I didn't understand. So I'm like, okay, I want to dive in. And so I started trying to understand wine. And then my dad started home brewing. And so now we're trying to understand craft whiskey. And then when the world discovered bourbon, I'm like, finally, this is a thing I can connect with, because it's already here in my blood. Like, this is what we were raised on. You sort of geek out on it, but then
Yeah.
you start not understanding when other people don't. Like, my wife just drinks. She's like, "Oh, that's okay," or "No, I don't like that," and it stops there. And I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's okay too. Like, I get it. Like, I know people just want to drink
Mhm.
something that they like and that tastes good to them, and they don't care about all these nuances that I might want to explore, or I might want to talk about, and that's totally fine. But I'm saying that's totally fine.
Right,
It's also totally fine for me and for you to dive deep and to
right,
like talk about all these crazy things that we're associating the flavors with based on our, flavor memory.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
both ways are fine. Both ways are cool. I'm not criticizing the people who drink it and say, "Oh, it's good," but a lot of those people feel like they can criticize the person that says they taste
correct.
cedar in a whiskey.
And it's because they don't think at that level, and that's okay. You're exactly right. They're not thinking at that level because they're not attached at that level, and that's okay. But it's almost like they feel like they're being left out of something, and so they're going to push back and be like, "Oh, well, no, you don't. That's not really
Yeah,
or whatever."
and at least from my perspective, it is truly just about what I'm experiencing. And I'm just trying to share that with people. And all I can talk about is myself and what I'm trying to convey. And I hope that it's coming across as an authentic portrayal of my experience with whatever I'm posting about. And I get it. Like, maybe sometimes it doesn't. And maybe sometimes it's not me and it's a projection of the person reading the post based on something they read right before they got to my post. And now they're saying this guy is an idiot. And okay, fine. And for the most part, I let those things roll off my back. There's been a few times where, I wasn't in the mood to receive that type of message and I pushed back on it. And
it's just right that one day.
Yeah. And it's just like, in the end, like, and this is pretty much, if I'm going to give some life advice as well. Oh my God, we're getting this deep into this. Like, we all take ourselves way too seriously.
Hold on, I got to get rid of somebody here.
I see a lot of Arabic.
That hit fast. Sorry. Yeah, so it's still in StreamYard, but it's not on YouTube. I got it. So back it distracted me. Sorry.
No, I just feel like a lot of the time we're all just too serious about, insert whatever. And I've started to just take now we're getting philosophical too, is I've just started to take the outlook on, especially over these last 2 years, like I've just started to take the outlook like, listen, we're all just doing what we can. We're all just, for the most part, everyone's doing the best that they can.
Right.
And we're all just trying to enjoy our lives to the best of our ability and to our own life experience. And what the hell else can we expect from anybody else? Like, why do we hold anyone else to any other type of standard that we wouldn't hold ourselves to? Like, come on, right. Let's just get over ourselves and let's just enjoy what we're doing. And okay, fine, I get it. We're not going to like some things that other people are doing, but does that mean you have to troll them, or you have to make a nasty comment to them, or you have to, make your voice louder than theirs because you didn't agree with whatever it was that they said? Like, I get it. There's some serious things going on and you need to be serious about some things, but like, come on.
Most of them aren't in the whiskey verse.
And most of them aren't even in actual life either. Right. Like, we take a lot of stuff in actual life way too seriously too, that gets us all caught up in some stupid things that just end up detracting from your quality of life. And
they detract.
I don't know. I'm getting philosophical here.
No, you're right. And this is going to be a little cliche, but you've seen the movie Van Wilder. Right? Mm-hmm. The line in there, like, don't take life too seriously because you're never going to get out alive. Right? It's a one-liner that comes out of just a kind of a ridiculous movie that we all sort of enjoyed at college. But maybe not. I think you're probably younger than me, so maybe you weren't in college at the time, but I was. But there's a lot of truth in that. I try not to take myself too seriously on this platform, because at the end of the day, this is the thing that I do for fun, right? You got a creative outlet with Urban Bourbonist. You do have a career portion with Bourbon Charity, which you're going to take seriously. You're going to carry that with a certain weight to it. But at the end of the day, this isn't paying my bills, and so I'm not going to also let it ruin my day.
Yeah, and you know what, like, I don't know. I think I'm probably older than you, but
how old are you?
I'll say it. I'm 46.
Okay, not too. At 42.
Okay. 42. So
I guess that was a question. Like earlier on, I said, if I ask a question you don't want to answer, you can absolutely say no to it. That's probably one that you were like, sorry.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I honestly, I'm at the point in my life. It's not like I'm some old wise person, but I feel like I've gotten to the point where um, I've lived life enough. I've done enough things to understand, like, to just have perspective, and that maybe, but that I know that I didn't have 10 years ago, that I didn't have probably even 5 years ago. And
I
just
think
to,
40 is enough for perspective. I think realistically,
yeah,
40 is enough for perspective because you've hit midlife at that point.
yeah. And it's just like you get to the point where you realize there was a lot of situations in your life that you took way too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You reacted in such a manner that you never would today if that same situation came up. And I just feel like that applies to a lot of things these days. And yes, like you mentioned, like I'm going to take Bourbon Charity seriously. Of course, I'm absolutely like this is a thing that is important. In it's more important than serious.
Right.
But I'm not going to let it like become like we had talked about, like the whole aspect of raising money. Like
Mm-hmm.
yes, this is like it's ultimately the thing that we do, but I can't become consumed with it to the point of like letting it ruin the mission.
Right.
Okay, so what? We didn't raise a dollar above last year. Okay, so what? And you said it. You said, but you still raised just a ton of money, and you did a lot of really, really good things with what you did. So just having that perspective, like looking at it from like, and it's just part of American life. It's just part of life. Is like you're always striving to go beyond what you did before, and if you didn't, then somehow it's perceived as a failure, which is just completely wrong thinking.
Yeah.
Now that I have like this perspective, like that is not the way to go about looking and evaluating
Right.
your life, or really anything in it, because you're then discounting everything else that you did. Just because you didn't reach one notch above what you did before, now everything you did is just for nothing? No, that's ridiculous. Like we have to look at those things as separate entities and understand that everything that's happening along the way means something, and some arbitrary goal. Honestly, that's what these things are. Like they're arbitrary goals. Like you're setting it for yourself, which is great. Like you need to have things that you're trying to achieve. But ultimately, like what's the point of that goal? It's just to meet it, and then you met it and you exceeded it and you say you did.
Right. What's
But
the
if you did it, does that mean that you didn't do something good along the way? No.
Yeah, if the goal is to reach the goal, then you've already missed the mark, especially in charity type work, because there's this intangible or immeasurable thing, when you come into the concept of integrity in what you're doing, right? So it may be that you could increase your fundraising by tenfold by doing something slightly dishonest next year. Does that carry forward the brand integrity, the thing that you're trying to build? You smashed your goal, but to what degree? And I think we fall victim to a very much a capitalist mentality where you walk in, the measure of a publicly traded company is whether they made more money than they did last year. But you cannot have that same type of mentality. It does need to operate in the black. That's the ideal goal, because then you are raising money for a charity. But if your measure of success is did I raise more than last year? That's not, it's a good goal, but that shouldn't be the primary goal. And that's where we fall victim in so many different places for that. But you're right. Like, goals are arbitrary and we largely make them up ourselves. And if we don't measure up to them, who have we failed other than ourselves? And failure is only how we view it.
Exactly. And I think that's the perspective that I never had until, fairly recently in life. Like, I never thought about things that way. And as I've, experienced more things, and really honestly, the past couple of years have, I think, opened up a lot of people's eyes to their, how they were living their life.
Mm-hmm.
But, and same for me. But I feel like it's just, we need to chill out. We need to just, yes, set those goals, try to reach them, but don't lose sight of the fact that as you're moving towards that goal, you're accomplishing a whole ton of things along the way. And if you didn't reach that arbitrary goal, it doesn't mean that everything was a failure. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of what's happened in today's way of life is that that's how it's looked at. Like, if you didn't reach the goal, you failed. And that's just false. It's patently false. It's not the way that I want to live. And it's not the energy that I want to bring to, things that I'm involved with or things that are important to me. And that translates to what I'm trying to do with Bourbon Charity. Like, I'm trying to move it forward. I want it to be bigger and better. And that's the goal. And we want to impact more things, but then we're doing amazing things along the way, and those need to be recognized. And a lot of this is in our own heads too. Like, people from the outside aren't thinking these things about what we're doing. And I'm not talking about Bourbon Charity. I'm talking about our own personal lives too. Like, mm-hmm. People aren't on the outside for the most part, like, scrutinizing what the hell you're doing. Right. They're involved in their own goddamn lives and worried about what they're doing.
They're scrutinizing their own shit at that point.
Yeah, they're not worried about your shit. Right. They're worried about their own. And, like, we're worrying a lot about what other people are thinking too, when, like, honestly, they aren't worried about what we're doing.
Right.
They're not concerned with what we're doing, because they're concerned about what they're doing. And that's also another perspective that I think I've gained as well, is like, I equate it to this, like, very simply, like, you wear the same thing 2 days in a row. You did. Mm-hmm. I will guarantee you go to work wearing the same thing 2 days in a row. Nobody at your office has any clue that you're wearing the same clothes that mm-hmm. you wore the day before. If they do, it's absolutely positively rare. And that's right. The same thing with life. Like, people aren't scrutinizing your every move. So, like, give yourself some grace and give yourself a break, because a lot of what we're doing is comparing ourselves to what we think other people are seeing.
Right.
You're comparing yourself to very philosophical, but
if you have, and I'm gonna kind of dovetail off what you said. If you have a coworker that does notice that you wore the same thing 2 days in a row, you have to start wondering, why are they scrutinizing you so deeply? Like, what's going on? Is there an unhealthy relationship that's developing there? Like, what's going on? And I'll add this. When my wife and I first started dating, my mother-in-law is a borderline neurotic cleaner. She's a very, very, very neat freak. And the first time that I ever visited her house, she, like, pulled out the washer and dryer and the refrigerator and cleaned behind them, right? Like, I, as a guest, would come in and they'd observe behind her appliances, whether it was clean or not. which is a ridiculous notion. But some years down the road, I found out that's how she had been behaving for a long time. So anytime I would go in, I would look behind stuff and be like, "Oh, I found some dust," and she'd be like, "Why are you doing?" Like, because no one does that. Don't like that's an impossible measure to try to live up to. No one should ever treat themselves that way. And you're exactly right. Like, it's just a super, super unrealistic version of yourself that you should not hold yourself to.
Yeah, and I get it. We all fall into the trap, throughout the course of a day or a year or a week or years or whatever it might be. And I'm not trying to be like some person that says they know everything about everything or how to live life, because I certainly don't. I only know how to go about it like based on my life experience, and I can offer my perspective and my advice and on, but it's solely based on my personal experience. So again, take that for what it's worth. Like, I can tell you I've lived this particular way or this particular life, and this has been my experience that's helped me, and it might not help you. But, if you, and again, this goes back to like a personal friend or someone that you trust, like me telling you, if you've known me for a long time, like, this is my experience in this particular situation that you're now experiencing, this may help you. And, it may or may not, but, all I can do is speak to my life, to my experience, to what I'm drinking, and how that's affecting me and my palate. And I think that's all anybody can do. And if we can all just accept everyone else for what they think and what they experience, then we'd all be much better off. But that's also tough as well.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, we have things we can share. People can take it or leave it, as long as we're as truthful to what we're saying as we possibly can be. That's all. That's the measure of success at that point.
Absolutely. And there's people that I absolutely positively disagree with on so many different things, on so many different levels, but ultimately, like, what good is it doing me to get so upset about their viewpoint? And I understand there's a lot of things that are very important that have a very strong viewpoints one way or the other, and one of those viewpoints is probably the better way than the other. But to eat yourself up over it, and I'm not saying to just skate through life like going, oh, I can't do anything about anything, but not taking things so personally.
Yeah.
Like, everything is not about you. Everything isn't so personal to you. Yes, there's important things that, yeah, you need to fight for, you need to advocate for, but you also don't need to kill yourself over someone else's opinion of that particular thing. Just focus your energy in your own direction to try to accomplish whatever it is that you want to, while not also consuming yourself with the other side of it that you disagree with. It's like, don't let that consume you. I don't know. That's a lot of words that probably didn't mean anything.
No. You're right. Now, what you're getting at here is that I think, for me, like, you end up on the opposite side of an argument of somebody for something that is actually important. Social justice, whatever, human rights, any number of those things. I think what you're getting at, and maybe what I know, I believe, is we have to be able to get to the point to where we can understand a person got to their viewpoint somehow. Their series, of course, their life, pushed them in a direction that led them to believe the thing that they believe. And until we can understand how we got there, there's no way we can do anything aside from yell into the void to try to get them to change their mind. Because very rarely, I mean, you've probably had a number of arguments in your life. How many times is an argument with another person about something political or religious or whatever else actually change the other person's mind? Very, very rarely. The only time I've ever seen movement in those type of conversations is whenever it's come from a place of trying to understand where that person came from and how they got to that point, and breaking down that transition and pointing out where the broken part happened, right? That they're getting to an incorrect assumption that, we all societally agree is incorrect. There's a way to get there. I mean, and that's what therapists are for, and psychiatrists, psychologists, and I'm none of those things, but to a smaller degree, we can, and I hate to use it because it's like church terms, but we can give people a degree of grace and understanding they got to a place somehow, whether it is wrong or not, they got there through their life events. And the only way we can get them to change their mind is understanding that and having real conversations and not just arguments.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's all very, very difficult. It's all, as we've all experienced living here in the U.S., like it's hard. It's
Yep.
difficult. There's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of disagreement. But I just try to, just going back to the whole idea of what's happening on social media and what's happening for me personally and with the charity, is I just try to be as authentic as possible,
Mhm.
and communicate as transparently as possible, and then that's it. That's all I can do, and I accept the fact that there's going to be plenty of people that don't like that, and what can I do? If that's how they want to approach whatever I'm doing, then okay, fine. Like I've gotten to the point where I'm just not going to let that
Right.
stuff
You're not going to change
bother
yourself,
me.
so you can just move on. You have two options: either change yourself or you move on from it. And so you can just move on from it.
Exactly.
So we've been running for 2 hours now, beyond 2 hours at this point. I have a couple other questions. None of them are super pressing. The only thing I did have: are there any specific brand partners that we didn't discuss? Anybody that you're working with at Bourbon Charity that we did not discuss tonight that you want to specifically call out, draw attention to, talk about, whatever? We ran through all the charities you're giving to. Anything else that we missed
on? No, we don't have any announcements right now in terms. So we're working on some sponsorships and things for our fundraisers this year. Right now, we don't have anything set just yet that we can really announce and say, yeah, this is a partner of ours for 2022. We have a lot of things close to that point, but not that we can say like, yeah, this is a sponsor, this is someone that's sponsoring this particular event for us. So nothing on that front just yet, but you will see some things coming here in the next this month. Probably in the month of February, we'll probably have some cool things to announce, hopefully. And so I would just encourage everyone out there to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter at Bourbon Charity, in all of those places. And just please, if you can, donate a bottle our way, join Bourbonhood. If you can't do either of those things, just be an advocate for the charity and spread the word when you see us post something, when you see that we're doing a fundraiser, tell people about it. I mean, honestly, we talked about this. That's massive for us. It's really, really big when a supporter tells somebody else or two or three other people about us.
All right. Let me see. I think that's got everything that I wanted to talk about. I assume you don't have anything left, so I'm going to go ahead and close it because we have been running for 2 hours. And I'll tell you, today was a perfect storm. They brought in, I have a team that works with me that are all relatively new. And so we brought in a company that's doing a presentation skills class. So I spent 8 hours of Zoom time today just on presenting. And so I have a degree of presentation fatigue that's starting to set in at this point in time. So I appreciate you for sticking with me on this. I've got another 8 hours of it tomorrow, so I get to do it all over again.
Oh, boy.
This is fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here with me tonight. For anyone that sees this, there's going to be links that are going to be in the video, the description on YouTube. Go send some money to these guys. Absolutely send some money. Go join Bourbon Hood, participate in a sweepstakes, do whatever else. If you're on the fence and you don't participate in a sweepstakes or Bourbon Hood bottle share, any of those things, at least share the good news. Share the good news. What they're doing is a positive impact in the community, and it's evident what they're doing is great. So thanks for joining me tonight or today or whenever you happen to be catching this. I hope you found this episode entertaining. If you did, please leave me a review on whatever platform you have to be consuming this on. Leave a comment. If possible, hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, all using Embellish Pod, and keep up with what's going on. I will be back on Wednesday night again with another interview. So I have 2 this week. One was with Chris here from Bourbon Charity, and then I'll have Alan Bishop from French Lick Spirits on Wednesday night, which is going to be a completely different type of conversation. I have a feeling, but I have a feeling.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's going to be some probably philosophical conversation there as well, but it may be slightly different. So if you have anything else to share, Chris, go ahead and do it, and then we'll close it out from there.
Just follow Bourbon Charity on social media at Bourbon Charity, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and bourboncharity.org. And John, thank you so much for listening to me go on and on and on with so many words tonight. I really appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate you providing the platform and allowing me to talk about Bourbon Charity and all of the tangents we went on. Absolutely. Thank you very, very much.
I enjoyed it. Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so very much.